Hi, it's Wendy Jensen here, the Second Life Midwife, and I wanted to share a question that comes up to me often with clients, and we kind of have this phenomenon going on where we can get addicted to our faith crisis, to our faith transition, to our religious crisis as we're transitioning out of the religion and into a new life. We can get addicted to watching video after podcast, and we kind of get sidetracked and we can't move forward in our life. Even when we know it's taking so much of our time and attention, we just still get sucked in, like we can't even help it. So we're going to talk about some strategies on why that happens, and some strategies on how that will help you move forward. So before I get into that, I just want to let you know that I have information below, and that if you are needing assistance to navigate this time in your life, to help you get on your feet and use it as a springboard to catapult you into your whole new life without being tethered to the religion, then I'm your girl. I would love to help you any way that I can. You can begin by subscribing to this YouTube channel. I also have I have online courses. I have private coaching and Zoom sessions. I have a Facebook support group, and any way that I can support you, I would love to be able to help you during this transition. So let's talk about this strange phenomenon of getting addicted to information. What happens when you are going through a faith transition and coming out of a high demand religion that has cult-like strategic things in place that are fear, leaders, community, and you're recognizing that there's so much that you have to lose, and the fallout is tremendous, and the decision that you're making to whether you should stay or to leave, whether you can make it work somehow, or whether it's time to leave, whether it's healthy for you, or whether it really is time to move on. During that transition, it can take a long time. And you need to hear the voices of others who have made the transition. You need to be validated in the cognitive dissonance that you are having. You need to hear other people answer the questions that you have been asking for a long time that no one in the leadership could answer for you. That's an important part of you making a decision, because that decision really, you have a lot to lose if you're wrong. You have a lot to lose by leaving a theology that's promised you everything in the next life. You have a lot to lose by leaving a religion that you'll lose your dignity, you'll lose your relevance within the community. You've been told you'll lose the Holy Ghost. You've been told you'll lose your moral compass. There's a lot at stake. And so of course you're going to want to study. Of course you're going to want to go as deep down as you need to go. And you need to give yourself that opportunity and that important time, so that you can have that confirmation that this is what is right for me. And when you're ready to cross that threshold, it's going to take a lot of courage. A lot of people, when you let them know there's a lot of emotional imbalance, there's a lot of, for the first time, you're recognizing how dysfunctional your family is and how you are lacking skills, and it's really traumatic. And to honor this trauma that you're experiencing, if your house were to burn down, or you were in an accident, or you were even going through a divorce, those people who are closest in your life, they're going to be there for you. They get that. They understand that must be painful. But those closest in your life who have not been through a faith transition, they do not understand what's going on for you. And many of them will push away because they don't want to risk their own testimony. And so again, you feel abandoned, you feel lost. And so of course you're going to want that validation from other people that are going through the same thing that you are going through. We have that common wound. We've been wounded in the same house. And so there's something rich about connecting with people who get us. And I don't want to discount this important part of your transition. It is important. And we have amazing experts. I'll call them experts, even though they've kind of tumbled into it. But we have Mormon discussions. We have Mormon stories podcasts, thousands of podcasts in Mormon stories. We have a year of polygamy. We have there are so many resources available to you now. just 5 years ago when I left, those resources were just starting to emerge. Now you have a whole plethora of information that you can go to read and to study. And to tell you the truth, at this point, it's never ending. Even as we speak, more people are coming up with more stuff. And so those resources are not going to be diminished. And even if they all stopped right now, it would still take you well over a year to get through all of this content that's already been created regarding what are the problems in the church, and the church needing to take accountability, and the transparency, and the trauma, and what's happened to me, and why it's not right, and how to do this and how to do that. What do I do with my kids? And it's just endless. In Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Outliers, he talks about becoming, it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in your field. And unfortunately, we spend so much time looking into what's wrong with the church that we become an expert at what's wrong in the church. And quite frankly, in your new life, in your new world, what contribution is that going to make? So I have a parallel story. Let's call it a parable, I guess you could call it. And I got this from Rodney Allgood. When I heard him explain it, he helps ex-Jehovah's Witnesses to be able to process the trauma and to move on in their life too. And so when he explained this to me, it really made perfect sense. And he explains it like this: if you were married in a relationship for 20, 30 years, and you came across an email or a text message or some sort of information that let you know that your spouse of these 20, 30 years, let's say 30, just because I love the number 30 because that's how long my marriage was. So you're married to this person 30 years, and you get a text, and you realize, I'm now a little suspicious. Why is he getting texts from this woman? And let's say you went in there. By the way, I'm not explaining my marriage. That's not what happened. This is a parable. But if you start to do some research and you realize, oh, they are communicating back and forth, and then you find an email, and then you find you go into your bank account, you see some bank statements that's in suspicious places, purchases in suspicious places. You're like, what the heck is going on? So let's say you're at the point where you're so convinced that there's an affair going on that you approach your spouse and you say, hey, what is this information? What's going on? And the spouse, let's say he denies it and say, I don't know what you're talking about. For many members of the church, that's what it feels like. You come to your bishop and say, I have all these hundreds of questions. And the bishop's like, I don't know how to answer any of them. And so then you start to have these emotions of betrayal that now you're not even admitting it and you're lying to me. And what happens, and let's say the husband said, you're right, I am having an affair. So what if you just continue your research, even after there's been an affair, you continue your research. You really want to know what's happened. All this was happening underneath your nose and you didn't even know it. So you start researching some more and you discover, there's another relationship. Oh, he's cheated on you 3 times. How many times is it going to take for you to recognize that he's a cheater? What is it going to take for you to realize that your relationship was just a lie and that it's not going to be healthy for you to stay in the relationship because there's no way you can trust the person who's been cheating the whole time? And so you decide to leave. You make that decision to leave because that's what's best for you. And instead of moving on, you again start researching and you unearth every girlfriend that he's ever had, and you get on their social media and you start to research them and why did he have an affair with them and what happened and what's all the torrid details, and you just keep going on and on into a rabbit hole, even though you've made the decision that it's not right for you and you've left. And in the church, that means we've resigned. Or at least we say, I'm not a member anymore. Whether we actually have resignation is a different story. But you've decided, I no longer subscribing to this narrative, nor do I need it in my life. Yet you spend hours and hours researching and digging. And the reason we do that is because we need that validation. The problem with that is we only have so much bandwidth. And so much bandwidth in our mind. And so much of our thoughts were anchored into our performance as a member of the church. And now it's like we've replaced that portion, that bandwidth, with becoming a disgruntled or a non-member of that church, or somebody who wants to know as much details as they can. A lot of it is because we're afraid we'll be confronted, and we want to have answers as to why we're leaving, because we've been, the people inside have been told what the narrative is as to why people leave, and we want to be able to defend ourselves. But again, there comes a point where you can defend yourself. You've got it all figured out, and you still are submerging so much time and attention into forums, Reddit, support groups. And so at what point are you not taking responsibility for your life? You've been given this tremendous freedom. It's as if, and I use the analogy of the dragonfly after it emerges out of its nymph body, and it has this gorgeous thorax and its bright colors, and it's got these 4 wings that can operate simultaneously. It's a majestic creature at this point. And for you, it's like you have those wings, but you're so tethered to your old body. You're not quite sure how to function in the world. And quite frankly, that is the truth. We're not quite sure how to function in our world without the church, because it was so much a part of who we are. And as we are moving into this new identity, our goal is to start to understand who we are. If we don't have a way to process those emotions, then we're processing them in a very toxic and ineffective way by just listening to podcast after podcast after podcast. Whereas if you're with a therapist is going to understand where you are and recognize where your gaps are, where your skills are underdeveloped. Many times we're using the same skills we were using in the church to try to create a whole new world. And this whole new world doesn't operate under those old skills very well. And so what if you spent your time on gaining those new skills and learning more about yourself? And here's the important part about moving forward: capturing a vision about who you want to be, what you want to create, and the difference you want to make in your life. When you are really focused on those things, listening to another podcast sounds boring. It sounds ineffective and irrelevant. And so may I suggest that if you keep doing that over and over again, it's because you have not yet created a clear vision of who it is you want to be now that you are no longer tethered to that theology. And so that's going to be part of your process, is to write down, who am I? What do I want in this world? What does the next 5 years look like for me? You cannot have your feet in both worlds. You cannot create this brand new world, one, using the old skills that you learned in the old world, and constantly being submerged in that world. You've got to choose one. Another analogy that I got from Rodney is, he explains it as, we try to write a new chapter, and we try to end that chapter of us living, under the influence of the doctrine, and we just write a next chapter, and that is living without the influence of the doctrine, and how that made me feel. And we're just writing another chapter after chapter where what our life is calling for us to do is to close the book and to put the end, and to start a whole new book with new people, new characters, a whole new script. He explains it as, Rambo, the movie Rambo, and the movie Rocky are 2 different movies. The same character, we have Sylvester Stallone, 2 entirely different movies. And until you cross that threshold and make a clean cut and say, okay, I'm done. I understand my husband was a cheater. There's nothing going to change him, and I need to move on, and I need to stop being obsessed with what the trauma that's happened to me. I mean, you really could even just join a group of people whose husbands have cheated on them and cycle in there. That could be never ending. You have to at some point say, I'm done. I'm done. What's happened to me has happened to me. Now I'm ready to heal, gain new skills, get a vision for my future, and move on. And your life is calling for you to do that. Again, you can do it for years and years. You'll be in this world podcasts And I can give you a list of all the great ones that are out there that are essential and helpful in you moving forward. But once you get obsessed, now you're stuck and stagnant, and you can literally get an addiction. An addiction is something that we do over and over again when we know inside that it's not serving us and that it's holding us back. So I hope these things are helpful for you. And that you see the importance of creating a new world for yourself and learning who you are without the church. You know, when you pull that thread out of the tapestry that you've been creating inside the theology, when you pull the thread labeled the religion, it's a long thread. You pull it out of that tapestry, and you're going to wonder what's going to be left behind. And a lot of times it really is a skeleton, but that essence, that skeleton, that whatever's left over, that part of you is a fabulous core. And your values are going to be clearer than ever. They're not contingent on being the church's values. You understanding what you love and what you want without the filters that the church had put on you to condition you to be, you know, an automaton for their agenda. It's a whole different world, and it's waiting for you. And now you get to choose the thread that you're going to sew yourself together with. And that tapestry, even though it will always bear your essence, it will be a whole different design. And this time it will be the design that you want, the design that comes from your heart, the design that comes from your intuition, your gifts, your focus, and you leaning into what lights you up so that you can impact the world and become the greatest version of yourself. It's not enough just to wake up. You have to grow up and clean up so that you can show up. And I hope this is helpful for you. Again, if you want to connect and you're needing coaching, or if you want to just subscribe to this YouTube channel, please do so down below. Check you later. Bye.